we just believe in core competency, right? We believe that if you, do something and you do it better than everybody else and you do it well, good things are going to happen.
So, Patty, I really enjoyed our interview today with Kai Xu from HotSauce. Fantastic processor-agnostic point of sale. I thought it was a really interesting conversation.
And a great name for a restaurant point of sale system.
Yeah, HotSauce.
Right?
Think much better than that, right? Yeah,
can't get better than that.
Yeah,
I thought Kai had some really. I mean, he's sort of taking the what is currently the path least traveled.
Yes, to be truly processor agnostic and just to serve through the ISO agent distribution model is definitely unique.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I actually got introduced to him. I'll give a shout out to Dave Humphrey.
Okay.
So I got introduced by Dave, and Dave was like had such a great experience with HotSauce, and I was kind of like, oh man, all these processor agnostic options have kind of
faded by the wayside. Yeah.
Right. And so I talked to Kai, and I was like, wow, this is a great guy with a great business, and so I thought it was really interesting. So then questions from the field, I talk about confidence and expertise, and I talk about a recent sale that I'm actually filming myself selling a restaurant on a point of sale system, ironically. So that fit well with the content today. And so I just talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that exist there, and the importance of having that confidence and expertise, and how to make that practical in the sales process. And then Patty, tell us about the insiders today.
Talking about open banking and JP Morgan Chase's new pay by bank solution, which I think is going to sort of like open the floodgates for more things like this down the road.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into this one, I was doing my little disclaimer. Kai and HotSauce, they're not currently paid consulting clients or advertisers. It was funny. I was thinking about after we recorded it, we did kind of pitch them quite a bit actually in the interview, just because it's such a great,
right,
such a unique thing. But no,
yes.
they're not getting paid for that or anything like that. I would love to do business with Kai in the future, but we're not doing anything right now. So I want to clarify that. With that being said, let's dive into our interview today. Hey everybody, Patty and I are here today with Kai Xu. Kai is the CEO at HotSauce. How you doing today, Kai?
Hey, how are you?
Doing
great
fantastic.
to be here today.
Yeah,
great to have you.
Well, I'm really excited about the topic today, Kai. We've talked a lot on the podcast about the transition of a lot of these companies that are doing the technology and the processing. But today we're going to talk about the processor agnostic solution, which I think HotSauce is such a fantastic representation of that. And how do you structure these partnerships? How do ISOs work with companies like yours? So a lot of questions for you, but before we dive into that, we always want to hear the story, and I'm super interested in this. I know you and I talked a little bit on the last call, but how did you get into this industry, and how did you end up in what you're doing now with HotSauce?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, first of all, it's great to be here, and thank you for having me. It's just such a great opportunity to get to talk to you and all of your following. So really excited about that. I started my career off years ago in investment banking. Okay. And from there went into venture capital. And, I think eventually every VC wants to scratch that itch, right, and become an entrepreneur. Yeah. So, a few years ago, I had the chance to get involved with HotSauce Technologies. This is, I want to say, about 13 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been a great run. A few years back, we kind of looked at the industry and we saw that, more and more the convergence of processing and POS and the direction that was going. And it seems like, for a while, it seems like every time you turn around, another processor has bought a POS company. So at the time, we felt that, hey, you got half the industry that's kind of shifting to the model where you have to provide this bundle service, right?
Right.
And we just felt that there was an opportunity to really serve for lack of a better term, the other half of the industry, right? The guys that are going to stay independent. I'm going to stay that independent ISO and agent. I want to sell, what I believe in, the best of breed products and whatnot. And so that's when we decided, let's go into let's morph our business into a business that we can really support the independent ISOs and agents and allow them to be able to take our product and be able to go and compete effectively in the market and against the guys like the Toast or the Harbor Touch or Shift4s and the guys that you see every day now offering the bundle solutions.
Yeah. So I love this. It's a great segue because my first question, I just wanted to zoom out a little bit and get your thoughts because Right. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, there is this convergence. I would say today it's, it's exponential versus say 5 years ago in terms of,
Oh,
finding a point of sale company that has absolutely nothing to do with the payment processing, right? They don't have it in-house. They don't have an option to do it in-house. Like they do not do the payment processing. They are truly no processing, processor agnostic. I mean, it's pretty rare actually. So I'm
it
curious.
is.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, why is that? What do you feel like led to that trend and that shift in the market? I mean, I remember when I get into the industry, I mean, even Micros and Aloha weren't doing their own processing. So
Right,
what
right.
what led to this shift? And then, what led you to make this decision? Was it just about the distribution, or what was the rationale for saying, yeah, we're going to go a totally different path, kind of against this trend?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's no secret, right? I mean, processing, we're in a very, very lucrative industry. And sometimes, at the end of the day, I get asked this all the time, right? Like, Kai, how are you guys able to continue following this path? And why is it that everyone else eventually kind of caves to the pressure
Right.
start bringing in processing and start competing with the people that sell for them?
Right.
And I think it's very simple. I mean, it comes down to the money, right? I mean, it's a lot of money out there. The margins are great, and sometimes you just can't stay disciplined. It's really the simple way of answering that. Especially now in our industry, you have a lot of our competitors are publicly traded.
Right.
You're constantly faced with pressure of delivering more, more earnings, and where am I going to find these earnings? So
Right.
I understand why others are doing it, but for us, I call me old fashioned, but I think myself, our team here, we just believe in core competency, right? We believe that if you do something and you do it better than everybody else and you do it well, good things are going to happen. And that's really how we
Hmm.
modeled our business to be able to create what we call the best solution out there to be paired with the merchant processing industry. And then we have, just basically allow our great partners to go out there and sell it for us.
Yeah, I love it. So, as a result, I think of all of this change and, frankly, a lot of ISOs getting burned, right? Even myself, I've experienced this many times. Oh, we sold a merchant, and then, 2 years later, next thing I know, the point of sale company's reaching out, or they're calling the merchant and saying, hey, you can't process with them anymore. So as a result of that, there is this kind of healthy skepticism, I think, in the ISO agent space. What would you tell them, broadly in terms of what should they look for in a processor agnostic solution, as far as how should they structure the deal, et cetera? Let's start with that. Like what should they be looking for and what should they be doing there?
I think, at the end of the day, I think you just have to look at, what I would say is whether they partner with HotSauce or someone else, when you're looking at a POS solution and you're looking at a partner for the long term, really look at how their business is structured, the way they carry themselves. I mean, it's easy to talk the talk, right? But to
Right.
walk the walk is a little bit harder, right? And so really take a look and see, how they've created their operating processes. How are they structured fundamentally to work with you as a partner? And I can give you, for example, at HotSauce, some of the things that we've done. I mean, when we decided a few years back that we wanted to go down this route and of really partnering with our merchant processing partners, at the time we had offices throughout the country. We had a direct sales team as well. And in the course of about 9 to 11 months, we closed all of our offices, all of our direct sales offices, whether it's Charlotte, New York, LA, Houston, Chicago. We just closed them all one by one because, at the end of the day, we felt, if we're asking, our great partners to go out there and work hard every day to sell our system, it's just not right for us to sit around here waiting to compete with them. So for us, it's about doing what we say we're going to do and following through on it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I think
It's like a partnership in the true respect, right, James? I mean,
yeah.
a lot of times I hear these, in my line of work, interviewing people all the time. And it's like, oh, we're really for our partners. And then you like drill down a little bit more and no, they're really all about, the bottom line, their own bottom line, not the partner's bottom line. But it sounds to me like you've reached that equilibrium of sorts.
I think so. I mean, wouldn't it be great if everybody in business just actually did what they said?
Wouldn't it be?
Yeah, and it's like we're all in it for the profit. But one of the interesting points that just stands out to me, Kai, when you're talking about this, and it's a common theme for me. I just talking about outside capital and especially publicly traded companies. But even I feel like the same pressure exists with PE firms in the industry and things of that nature, where you got to look at the way a company is structured and understand that many times the decision is outside their hands. The CEO of the company that's owned by a private equity firm that realizes they could add $1 million a month to their EBITDA if they took the processing in-house. Let me tell you what's going to happen there. They're going to take the processing in-house. Okay.
That's right.
Right.
That's
now,
right.
Now what's interesting is that may be the worst strategic decision because it may cost them millions in EBITDA in 5 or 10 years as they lose their distribution. Right. But
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing is is this a company that's operated from a perspective of short-term pressure or a company that's operating with a long-term vision of building something meaningful? And it sounds kind of like HotSauce is that latter company that's like, okay, we want to build partnerships for the long run and we're not willing to damage those relationships for a short-term hit.
Absolutely. I mean, my parents were both business people. And I think one of the things that they've always taught me is, when it comes to business and value, there's nothing more valuable than your reputation, right? And that's really what it is at the end of the day. I mean, we've always said that, hey, that's just our model. I mean, we're not going to compete with the people that are feeding us and that are taking care of us, and it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so one last challenge I do want to discuss, and this is a big one. I brought this up many times on the podcast, other things where I have seen this unfortunate situation where a lot of times the processor-agnostic solution, we have one company doing the hardware software, then we have a different gateway provider, and then we have the ISO that's trying to sell the payment processing with a DocuSign agreement or whatever it is, and then they're trying to get the installation done. And there's this very kind of clunky, disjointed experience for the end user, for the merchant, because they have multiple companies that they're dealing with. Now, I have heard from a lot of partners that's not the case when they sell with HotSauce and there's a smooth experience. So how do you do that? What are you doing differently to kind of bring this together so that there's a good experience for the merchant rather than this really disjointed process we see all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really great question. And we're actually very proud of the way, we're able to partner with the merchant processing industry and sell our product and be able to support our partners. And I think the way we're able to do it, and I think, I'd like to say, I don't want to say we're the best, but the way we're able to be better than many is just the way we fundamentally think and the way we're set up. Right, we're not here to sell POS however way we can. And by the way, if it's with some merchant processing partners here and there, great. Everything about us is, that's the only way we sell. Everything about us is selling through the merchant processing partners. So all the little things, from the way we structure our contracts. Our contracts are 3-year contracts, for example, which, surprise, surprise, matches, a lot of merchant processing contracts. Little things like, supporting our ISOs and agents with product demos. So certain agents and ISOs, for example, will need us. Some of them like to do their own demos and they get really good at it, but sometimes they need us to do it because they're good at what they're doing, which is selling, right? And so we'll do everything we can to do the heavy lifting so that they can do what they do best, right? So those are all the little things that we try to put together. And as a big part of that is the way we view our system, right? So HotSauce started years ago, back when you had dealers and all this type of stuff. And we still take that mentality with us. So whereas so many POS nowadays is, it's more of a DIY solution, right? Once you sign the contract, boxes start showing up and you can call the call center to do this. Once you sign up with HotSauce, within 48 hours, you get a call from your dedicated project manager. And that project manager stays with you throughout the entire process of your implementation, right? And so they're there to schedule, your menu builds, your installs, your go lives that we do with you. All the little things we take care of for you, so that, we don't leave anything to chance, right? Because you're right. I mean, a lot of times when you have different people doing different things, that's where problems happen. So for us, it's about kind of taking this and we treat it as not a DIY solution, but this is a full service solution that they're purchasing. And I think that helps us to overcome a lot of the problems that many of our competitors are faced with. And then once the implementation process is completed, our project manager then sits down with them and hands them over to the support team. And from there, they're taken care of by our 24/7 support. So hopefully, at the end of the day, what you get is an enjoyable and seamless process.
Right. Let's shift gears a bit, if you don't mind, Kai. I'd like
Sure.
to talk about HotSauce itself. What are some of the businesses types that you're targeting? Other than your unique distribution model, what sets the software apart and the hardware apart from the merchant's perspective?
No, absolutely. So one of the things that we do at HotSauce is that we know our core competency. We know what we focus on, and what we focus on is food and beverage, is restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't do hotels, we don't do retail, and we just do restaurants. But within the restaurant world, I'd like to say that we do everything pretty well. Whether it's a fast casual, whether it's a fine dining, whether it's a bar and nightclub, all within that space, we can do pretty much everything very well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways that we're able to do this and partner with our ISO partners is to really, and you mentioned hardware, right? So
right.
One of the things that really sets us apart is the way we approach hardware. Long story short, I get asked this all the time, like, how are you guys able to offer this type of pricing, right? People love us not just because of the level of service and things like that. I know it's also because, hey, we can offer our partners a high quality solution for very, very low cost, right? And often get asked that, like, how are you able to do that? It just doesn't make sense. And if it's okay, I'd like to kind of share with you how we ended up there. When we decided to go down this route, me being a finance guy and an investment banker and in my past lives, we started thinking like, okay, how are we going to fund this stuff? It takes a lot of cash. So at the time, myself, I'm from Taiwan, and I have, as you know, Taiwan is the technology capital of Asia, if you will, and a lot of the best hardwares and manufacturers are out of there. So I have a lot of great relationships over there. And when we started this process, I went to our hardware manufacturer, which is a company called Kesta. They own, brands like Acer Computers, BenQ Electronics, multi-billion-dollar publicly traded house. And I went to them, I said, look, here's the thing. I know you're looking at guys like us, the guys that buy your equipment and your salary and you're a hardware manufacturer, right? I mean, your margins are sub 5%, 3-4%, maybe 2% in some cases. But hardware manufacturers are very risk averse, right? Give me that contract, give me my money, give me my cash, and I'll deliver your product. So I told him, I said, look, I know you're looking at our margins and you're salivating over the margins that we have as a technology provider, but I'll tell you, I'm looking at you sitting on a $250 million of cash, and I'm salivating over that. If we're going to grow this business, we need the cash. And so we explained to them, what our industry is faced with, what a lot of the independent ISOs are faced with. And I said to them, I said, look, if we partner together, if you consign the equipment to us and, kind of collect your revenues on the back end, I think you're going to experience a little bit better margins. But at the same time, we create a win-win for everybody, right? This is a solution that a lot of ISOs need for their merchants. So we were able to get them to do that. And obviously, I'm making it sound a lot simpler than it is. I mean, everybody in the industry knows our story and they know what we do. But, fast forward a few years later, we're still the only POS company in the world that has a major hardware manufacturer that has this type of arrangement. And it takes a lot of trust and it takes a lot of, a good partnership and whatnot. And we love that, and we try to use that to the benefit of our ISO partners and agents.
Very cool. Very cool.
Okay.
I have to turn to toast because that's been such a big topic of conversation lately, and I'm wondering, what your view is of them as a competitor and what your advice to ISOs and agents that are competing against them, either, in terms of trying to steal existing Toast clients or go head to head with them, during the proposal process, and sort of how does HotSauce support this?
How to compete against Toast? And that's a great question because, look, at the end of the day, Toast is a great product, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I don't believe there's any such thing as one product that is the absolute best or the best solution, and so I think, it's not, I don't think there's a magic pill that you can take on how to sell against Toast. I think it's the little things, right? Although, nowadays it's been a little easier, right? Because I think we're finding out, especially guys that do cash discounts, we're getting a lot of conversions from Toast because they can't really do cash discounts the right way, right? So that's kind of a chink in their armor, if you will. But I think at the end of the day, other than the fact that they're also kind of pricey, I've obviously I have limited knowledge, limited access to Toast, but I've seen it before. I've talked to customers that have come and worked with HotSauce before, and I've asked them, what did you like or not like about Toast, and a lot of great things and then things that they don't like. But one of them, that I hear over and over is, I can't really ever tell what it is I'm paying on the processing, right?
Right.
I hear that a lot. And for a company that prides itself and talks a lot about their reporting and this and that,
right?
And I tell our customers, like, or our ISOs and agents, if a company builds themselves and prides themselves on all the reporting, but they can't produce a very transparent report on your processing, what does that tell you about what you're being charged, right? So that's, I think, another thing that you can point out to the customers, and then finally, I think at the end of the day, again, a lot of our ISOs and agents will ask about the Toast question, right? And I look at it this way. I was like, look, trust yourselves, right? I mean, Toast is a great product. I like to think HotSauce is a great product and a great solution. But at the end of the day, we all know people are buying, they're buying from people, right? They're buying from you, the agent, and sell yourselves, sell yourselves. I mean, sell what HotSauce is, the program that we have, how we hold your hand. But at the same time, don't forget to sell yourself. Hey, I'm here with you, right? If you like working with me, this is what you get.
That's really important too. I mean, I think that's that seems to me, I was going to do a follow-up of sort of like distinguished, how would you distinguish? And I think that right there, that's what you're saying, because it's not a sort of a one size fits all, which really Toast is, and it sounds to me like you're much more in line with sort of holding hands to make this profitable for all parties involved. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. I think we pride ourselves on bringing in great partners. We don't partner with everybody that wants to sell HotSauce.
Okay.
But we partner with great people, great organizations that are like-minded in terms of our culture, which is, putting the customer first, taking care of them. It's not just about getting to sign that contract and I'm moving on, but we're here to take care of them, and those are the people we work with. And I think, I'd like to think that even though the world is changing, that people still value that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, small business owners in particular, I think, value that. And the other thing that's funny, I was going to bring up, Kai, I'm sure you probably saw the quarterly earnings call and all that with Toast just a couple of days ago, where their stock took a hit. Where I think they'll be fine down the, but it is interesting. Like, we do have an interesting window in time right now where Toast does seem to be making quite a few blunders these days, from a PR perspective, especially.
Yes.
If I'm out in the field competing with Toast, I'm definitely gonna have some news articles with me. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yes. Oh
Right?
yes.
Just, hey, take a look at this. Do you think this is a company
Hey.
that's about to raise your prices? You know what I mean? So,
Or do you think this is a
Exactly.
company that has long term, I mean, you have to start questioning if they're taking hits this early on, is this somebody you want to hitch your wagon to? Is it going to have that long term viability? I mean, we've seen this in other companies in the payment space where they come
right.
out gangbusters, and then over time it just all starts falling apart.
The wart starts to show, and then especially if they're publicly traded, then they're under pressure. Where am I going to find my next dollar, right? Where am I going to increase that margin? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of think about the potential places where they can find that, right? So
Right. We'll start with a 99-cent fee, right, on each item.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they definitely had they've had some interesting situations. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation, Kai. I always enjoy just talking to other, people that are passionate about the payments industry. I love what you're doing with the ISO agent model. I mean, I frankly don't know very many other companies right now who are truly doing what you're doing and have this passion for the processor agnostic, the ISO agent world. So for those in our audience who want to learn more about HotSauce, where would you send them to learn more?
No, absolutely. So there's a few ways you can come on our website and look at the information there and reach out to us. Probably another way to do it is just email our VP of channel sales. He handles all of the inbound inquiries himself personally. And do you want me to say his email?
Yeah,
or?
please. If you want to,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So it's very simple. It's T Lee, Tlee. His name is Torrent Lee at HotSaucePOS.com.
Excellent.
Got it. Very good. Thank you so much again for your time today. Really appreciate your insights, Kai.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great.
Thank you guys for having me. This has been great.
So, Patti, I love how later in the episode today, you're going to be talking to us about open banking, among other things. And of course, the sponsor of our podcast is Nativia Banking, right? And so Nativia is a fintech that's taken full advantage of the open banking experience.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, I thought I would just bring up on here, which is interesting. Our company is done with this whole transition of all of our recurring payments and everything is now running through Nativia, right? And so Nativia Banking, our employees have their little Nativia card, and we have our finance person is able to manage their spend limits, approving transactions, virtual cards.
It is so way cool.
Yeah, like when we went to the WSAA, we bought a booth. And the way we did that is with a virtual single-use card that was given to one of our employees that had the exact amount of money available to do that one purchase and only that one purchase. And then that virtual card is done. So the security, the flexibility, all of that is huge. And so the idea here is you as a payments professional, you really need to get into this industry, this idea of open banking and understanding neobanking and banking services. It's time to get into that and to start to experience it for yourself. And so there's so many different things you can do. They now have the payment professional card that you can get if you're just an individual in the industry. If you want to be a reseller and make residual by selling banking services, you can do that as well. So if you head over to nativia.com/banking, you can check out all of that. So nativia.com/banking, and check out all of those fantastic services that they have to offer. So, Patti, today I want to talk about the importance of confidence and expertise when selling payment processing and related solutions.
Excellent.
So, I had an interesting experience last week. I was at a local restaurant where I'm actually recording myself making a sale. And so it's been a very interesting process. But, it just really was, I had a couple of things really interesting about the conversation that I wanted to point out that I just found kind of fascinating. One was, even though I was admittedly a little rusty, it's been a little while since I sold a point of sale system to a restaurant myself. I tell a lot of people how to do it, but I do it a lot.
Sure, of course.
But I probably sold 200 restaurants on POS systems, but that stopped about 8 years ago. And so, and so even though I was a little rusty, I have to admit, there's just a confidence and an expertise that I have when I walk into a business that just really disarms, the decision makers.
And I can see that.
It's so funny because I was weird. I was kind of like having this out of body experience of like watching myself in this sales situation and just thinking like, how on earth can I communicate what's happening right now to my audience? Because it's very difficult. I'll give an example. I mean, a really practical example. When I walked in for the first time, And I had an appointment scheduled with this owner. But I walked in for the first time and they were in this office, in this little room kind of off to the side. They have like an office there and they had some computers and some wires running and all this, you know? And I can remember when I first started selling payment processing, I mean, I would have stood at the door of like back at the bar and been like, hey, no rush. I'm out here whenever you're ready. What I did this time is I walked back into the room and I sat down in a chair that was empty. You know, like there's a really big difference between those two things. Like I just walked in, I was like, hey, how you guys doing today? And I just sat down in this chair. I didn't ask if I could sit down. I just sat down in the chair and I just started talking to him. And how's everything going today? Awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking time to catch up with me here. I'm not going to take much of your time. I just have an interesting idea that I want to run past you. And they're like, what do you got? And then I just started talking about this point of sale system and how we could give them the hardware for free if they would work with me. And I'd love to work with them on the processing. And, you know, and I just, I just had this very casual conversation with them, you know? So we had this conversation. From that, we set up a meeting, what I call a discovery meeting, where I had, turns out the owner also has his father's really involved in the business as well. So I arranged a time to come back to talk to both of them. And I mean, it was a little more interesting because I was doing all this on camera. So that was also kind of an interesting, you know, but I came back in and what was so funny, Patty, is when I walked in and I started talking to them, there's an agent in the local area. So they have 2 locations. There's an agent in the local area with a really well-known company point of sale that I actually know this guy. I went to lunch with them and everything like that. He's probably going to listen to this podcast. So, and they brought up immediately this. So this guy works on their other location. And at this location I was talking to, they have a very old, out-of-date system that needs to be replaced. And they're like, yeah, we talked to our agent such and such, and he brought up this issue and that issue at the point of sale I was selling. And I just said, wow, he's doing such a great job, isn't he? What a great guy. You know, that's awesome. So yeah, let's sit down and talk through this. And we sat down and we talked through it and I closed the deal. Like, you know, in other words, there's a confidence and an expertise that you can develop where you just aren't that worried. You know, I didn't need that sale. You know, I don't need any sale anymore. But I learned how to act like I didn't need the sale when I did need the sale, which is how I got a lot of sales, you know? And so the thing I want to point out today is just 2 things really quick: confidence and expertise. Number 1, confidence. You are a business owner, right? If you are even a W-2 agent out there in the field, you know, you're a salesperson, you're building your own business, you're building your own career, whatever you want to look at it as. Whatever you have to do, you got to get yourself onto a level playing field. When I go and I talk to a business owner, okay, number 1, I'm on a level playing field with them as far as I'm a business owner, they're a business owner. But when it comes to what I'm talking about, I actually even have more expertise than they do, significantly more expertise than they do. And so I don't talk down to them, but I certainly am not intimidated by them. Now, if they want to start talking to me about the best way to make a margarita, right? Well,
maybe then you can defer to them, right?
I got a problem there, right? Like,
I wouldn't know how to do that either.
I don't drink and I've never made a drink, so I don't know how to do that. That's not me, right? So you know, that's their area of expertise. I'm going to, you know, defer to them. But when it comes to a point of sale system, payment processing, then I'm going to have that confidence level. And where that comes from, obviously a lot of experience, but where it really comes from is expertise. Okay.
Yes.
I know the right questions to ask. And so what I would really encourage you as a takeaway from this particular segment is this: whatever it is that you're selling or trying to sell, write down 5 to 10 great questions that you can ask business owners. Now, in order to do this, you've got to get specific. It has to be a vertical. You know, it's like, okay, so as an example, Patty, in this one, I'll give you an example of this. I asked them about, so they were kind of like, oh, our current system is old, but it's okay. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they hate it. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, great. I said, now let me ask you a couple of questions. And one of the first questions I asked was, talk to me about delivery. How are you guys handling that today with delivery? Oh, well, we have DoorDash and we hate it. And I'm like, why do you hate it? Well, they don't integrate into our point of sale system. Get this, Patty. So they actually send a fax.
Yes.
Every time there's a new DoorDash order, they get a fax. I was like, I didn't even know that there were still fax machines even existed.
I know, right? I knew this about DoorDash and it just blew my mind. It's like you, it's like somebody still has a fax machine.
And so they get a fax and they take this fax back to the kitchen. They don't even put it into the point of sale system. So it's not recorded with the reporting. It's a big mess. I was like, oh my goodness. Well, the system I'm talking about has a fantastic integration for DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub and all of that, you know, so you could do that. One of the other ones I'll give you is I asked them, because it's a restaurant. I know all restaurants right now are short staffed. So I said, how's your staffing going? What about efficiency with the servers? Is that a concern? And like, oh my, we can never hire enough servers. I'm like, okay, well, right now you don't have any handheld units for them to take orders. So they're getting an order, and this is a big property, and they're walking all the way back to the point of sale system. What if we got them some handhelds, and what if I included some of those for free with this deal? How would that impact your decision? And they're like, oh, wow. So they wouldn't have to walk back there. They would just enter it. Right. Exactly. And it's like, oh, okay. Now you need to have 30% less server labor. Right. So now maybe your servers are going to be happy and they're not going to quit because you're not overworking them. So all of that to say, you have to have that expertise. And I had, 20 other questions I asked them when we were doing this discovery conversation. And each of these questions, probably half of them were like, we're fine with what we have. And I'm like, okay, what do you have? So I can make sure I replicate it. And the other half, they were like, there's room for improvement. Okay, well, what do you want to see improved? And I wrote that down, right? So next step is demo, and we're going to do that on Monday. And so the sales process is very spread out because I'm doing it on camera and we have to set it all up. But
sure.
Right. But it's the idea of now we're going into a demo, and we go to this demo. I know exactly what we're demoing because we're demoing exactly what they told me they wanted. Right. And so they've already agreed to move forward, and now they just want to make sure that the demo is what they thought it was. And so there's this whole process, but what I've seen, what's really stuck out to me during this process of getting back into this in person was selling a point of sale. I've sold some payment processing for different content, but actually selling a full-blown fine dining point of sale like HotSauce, we talked about today, that type of thing, selling something like that, you definitely need that confidence and that expertise.
Yes.
And that needs to permeate the entire sales process. And then if you do that, it just makes it so much easier. So so confidence and expertise. Think about that as you're trying to sell these solutions.
That's really great advice, James. Thank you. So James, banking giant JP Morgan Chase has gone live, or is about to go live. Probably when this is broadcast, it will be live. A pay-by-bank solution that leverages the ACH rails and open banking technology from MasterCard.
Okay.
Now, Chase has long been a major player in the ACH, one of the largest originators and receivers. It's also a top card issuer and acquirer. But Pay by Bank is a biller solution. It uses the consumer's existing authentication protocols with their bank to retrieve necessary information to execute payments like for rent, utilities, recurring type payments, right?
Sure. Okay.
So, of course, not surprisingly, the telecom giant Verizon is going to be the first to pilot this.
Right. Sure. Okay.
And as they've said, in the coming months.
Okay.
Now, MasterCard, this is interesting. I wanted to bring this up because MasterCard is also working with WorldPay to support consumer bill payment in a similar way, as well as tools that support customer onboarding. And it's working with buy now, pay later provider Zip to provide real-time underwriting. Now, all this is possible because MasterCard is really big on open banking. And just as sort of, for those who aren't totally familiar with this, open banking allows for the sharing of consumers' financial information between their banks and authorized third parties by way of APIs. The beauty of open banking, especially for billers that are collecting recurring payments, is that it eliminates the need for them to store and regularly update customer financial information.
Sure, of course.
I recently, my financial institution recently changed its online banking program.
Okay.
It has been, and I also had my card compromised about a month or a half ago. So between those two things,
right,
everything that I have set up is now being rejected. Right. That kind of stuff is really important. MasterCard announced that it's beefed up its open banking tech with advanced analytics that help lenders better manage risk profiles. And it has added risk models for small business loans and credit lines.
Okay.
Now they're also working with WorldPay to support consumer payments, the Zip thing, as I was explaining.
Right.
Here's an interesting comment I got from Daniel Keys, a senior analyst at Javelin Strategy and Research. He said, open banking solutions can speed up the lending process so consumers and SMEs are able to get quick access to funds they need and get back to running their businesses and completing purchases. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up this week
Mhm.
is that while MasterCard is really big on open banking, Visa's not so keen on it. At a recent investor conference, they said they're going to take a wait and see approach to open banking. The whole open banking scene began in Europe after regulators set the ground rules.
Right.
But fintechs, which were seen as the big beneficiaries, have been really slow to build services around open banking.
Yeah.
In fact, a recent article I read posited that the slow uptake is probably due to a gap in digital payments adoption that needs to narrow.
Yeah.
So, and I looked, and when I was reading this, it occurred to me that almost everything in retail payments usually happens in Europe and then jumps to pond
Down like
here.
an EMV, PCI.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the early smart cards
Right.
were
Right.
in Europe before they were here. So, but I see this real, as we've seen in the past, a real big uptake in digital banking post-COVID, since
Right.
COVID.
Right.
So I think that, it's not going to be long before we see some more innovations along this line.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just think it's worth watching.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for the update, Patty. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.